And welcome, everybody. We are back, and well, hopefully better than ever. I'm Ted LaRue, that's Matt Dean. This is the 2025 football season preview show. Matt, I am so excited to be back here, and this is the way that we kick off fall sports. We've been doing it now for a few years. Blaine, Centennial, Spring Lake Park football is just a couple of days away this Thursday. What excites you most about what we're going to see, not only on Thursday, but throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, we got our fall football weather, so we're ready to go. I mean, I think it's going to be a really fun year. We were just looking. It doesn't feel like it, but our area teams went a combined 15 and 15 last year. That doesn't feel right. It tells you how good the 6A schedule is, for one. So you got a Blaine team that, of course, played in the state tournament. Centennial only a couple of years removed from a state title. They're coming in with a lot of expectations. And then Spring Lake Park, who technically had a losing season, but played an insanely tough schedule. They beat a really good Rogers team to get to the section title and were one win shy of the state tournament. So I think all three teams, and we'll talk about it, bring in varying degrees of experience from those squads last year, but a lot of consistency in coaching, some really good senior leaders coming back. I think all three are poised for really fun seasons.
Matt and the North Metro TV team were out at fall camp as it kicked off a couple of weeks ago. We're going to hear from coaches. We're going to hear from players among the top storylines for each of our three teams. And Matt, let's get this thing started. Let's start with the Baby Blues of the Blaine Bengals. That was the team that was the best performing team of our area teams last year. It's a 7-4 mark for Blaine last year, and they were led by Sam Shaughnessy, who's now playing college football at the Air Force Academy. They come in ranked number 14 in the preseason polls. Man, replacing a guy like Sam Shaughnessy that was such a focal point of the offense is going to be a tall task for Mike Law's squad this year.
Yeah, he was the conference player of the year, and for good reason. He counted for over 2,600 yards, 26 touchdowns. Remember, Blaine, I think it was going to be a really good matchup with Minnetonka. It got out of hand when Shaughnessy went out with injury in the first quarter. I think it was in Osseo in the state tournament last year. So a lot to replace with him, but we went to camp, and you'll see about it. There are three really talented up-and-coming quarterbacks that bring some different dynamics to how this Blaine offense can run this year. So a little bit of a money ball adage. I talked with Coach Law about it. They're going to replace Sam Shaughnessy in the aggregate. They've got a lot of talented players, some new faces, and but that is the story, how this offense can click without Sam under center.
And let's dive into that, because that's the first storyline that I think we want to focus on, is this three-way quarterback battle right now. You got a couple of guys that are maybe a little bit stronger, a pocket passer, and then you maybe got somebody else that's maybe more the mobile type that we saw in Sam Shaughnessy. Before we hear from Mike Law and some of the players about this quarterback battle, how would you kind of handicap on what you were able to see at practice?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like two distinct kind of styles of quarterback. Jameson Niska is the littler guy, the lefty, who's got some incredible athleticism. He's a track kid, a speedster. He's played defensive back mostly in his career. So, he's maybe your one-to-one, if you have to, comparison to Sam Shaughnessy, who was more of a true runner. He's going to be running that triple option at the Air Force Academy, as you said. And then you've got more of the two more so pocket passers, although they can both run a little bit. Gavin Olson, who's got maybe the strongest arm of the group. And then you got just a good overall athlete, Blake Bjorklund, three-sport kid. And he maybe brings some elements of both those guys. So we saw him. I mean, I would say from my amateur scouting eye, we were seeing a lot of really high-level passes being made in practice from a high school quarterback that you typically don't see when you're down there at a football practice. So, they always say when it's a multi-quarterback system, that's a problem. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. It could take a couple of weeks for the Bengals to get going, but I think they're going to settle on a guy or two, and it's going to be an opportunity to be dynamic, maybe not as much as last year with Shaughnessy under center, but a very good offense.
Some great perspective there by Matt, but we've got perspective from Coach Law and the guys from fall camp.
Those three quarterbacks that are up right now, they're all doing some really good things. Gavin Olson, Blake Bjorklund, and Jameson Niska have all kind of taken to it and are excited for the opportunity to be the one guy that's going to represent us behind center when Lakeville North comes over. I think all three of them have those leadership qualities. And that's the first thing we're looking for, guys that we're excited about representing our program. And those three guys do it well in the classroom. They do it well as they're in the weight room, and then when they get an opportunity to compete out here. That's one thing that they all three have in common. Gavin has a really strong arm and is more of your traditional pocket kid, but you watch him run straight line. He's a really athletic kid as well. He's a basketball kid. Blake is a hockey kid. He's a little bit more of a gunslinger, baseball background as well. A little bit more of the hybrid, can run a little bit more in the box, but also throw it really well. And Jamison is a kid that had played some defensive back at the sophomore level, really talented athlete, really strong and talented arm, but playing quarterback's a little bit more foreign to him. So it's been getting some urgency of getting him reps and balancing the reps of all three of those guys. So,
yeah, we got 3 great guys, great dudes out there. I mean, they're all working for it. They're all competing for it right now. Nothing's set, so I think, it's going to be great. They're all going to keep pushing each other throughout until we get that starting job, but probably closer to Lakeville North when we'll set that QB, and I think all of them can do it. So I'd say we got number 15 is Blake. Number 12, we got Gavin. I'd say those 2 are more throwing quarterbacks. They're going to be that mid-range, deep-range threats in the passing game. And then we got number 4, Jamison Niska, where he's more of a Sam Shaughnessy type. He's going to run that ball, more of the RPO style, but he also can still throw it. So I think we have great options all around.
With our open quarterback group, we just hope to support them for as long as possible. That way they can work out their bugs and, we can keep making them look good. It's always awesome to see, Jamison run a 20-yard gain and we're all celebrating, or Gavin or Blake throwing a 20-yard pass and taking it to the house. It's always fun, and, we're just here to celebrate them.
Moving from the offensive side of the football for Blaine from the defensive side, the way that defense really took an uptick and the way they really improved, everybody's going to be talking about what we just talked about in Sam Shaughnessy, but the way that defense played last season, I think was a big part of them making that run to the state quarterfinals. But now you look at 2025, now you look at this season, this is a group that loses pretty much everybody off of that defensive unit from last year. Do you think that this defense can kind of, based on what you've seen, do you think that they can kind of keep up that level of play as we enter 25?
Yeah, only one returning starter, but I think what is encouraging, and you'll hear some of the players and coaches talk about it, Matt Smoody, longtime coach at Blaine, stepped into the D coordinator role for the first time last year. And it really seems like they changed the scheme quite a bit, a little bit more of an aggressive defense, try to get some big plays to make some explosive plays, get your defense off the field, keep them fresher. It was something that a lot of the Blaine team bought into last year. And I think even though it's going to be a new cast of characters, they're really confident that those principles they established last year are going to carry over.
Losing that many starters, but football is still the same on the defensive side of the football.
We had about 10, 11 defensive starters that graduated last year. So it's a whole new group of guys. But, you just watch our practice. You see we have guys, juniors this year coming up making plays. We have guys last year who did great on JV making plays for us. So as a whole, I think we're going to be just as good as we were last year, if not even better, and show that defense up a little bit.
The players change, but the fundamentals of football, having to run and play fast and play violent and get downhill, stop the run, are things that are universal in Minnesota football. So Coach Smoody, who took over the defense last year, did a phenomenal job. He's getting those guys ready, and you can see today that he was pushing them and is excited again to get them on the field and compete for Blaine. So
We have to be able to run to the ball a little faster. We had little struggles about that when summer just started, but I feel like as the time is going by, we're getting better at it. But in the next weeks, and I feel like we're gonna be able to get where we want to be, because we have a good coaching staff. We got guys who want to be here, who are ready to fight for one another, and we're ready for it.
For every one of these teams, we're going to finish off talking about the schedule, and that's exactly what we'll do right now with the Bengals. 2 new opponents on their schedule, and there's one, Matt, that at the end of the year sticks out, a 5A powerhouse stepping up to one that short week. That Wednesday, Blaine Andover is one that everybody's looking forward to.
They've been one of the most dynamic offenses in the state the last few years, playing in multiple state tournaments, but have been doing it at the 5A level. So how does that translate to 6A? They reorganize the classes every couple years, and this feels like more of a shakeup between 5A and 6A than we've seen in recent years. So that can be a really fun matchup. You got a lot of hard-nosed, ground-and-pound teams in 6A. How's that spread offense going to translate for Andover? It's 2 teams that, even though they haven't played a lot in recent history, the players and coaches are very familiar with each other, so it's definitely one that stands out to this Bengal team.
Having these two communities, this close together, there's going to be a little bit of animosity between these two teams. Really exciting matchup at the end of the season.
There's a couple of guys from Andover that I train with in the same establishment, Next Level Athlete, which is down the road over here. And they're, like you can imagine, talking a lot of, I can't say the word, but we got some for them this year.
New competition. I know the coach. My coach knows, or their coach knows my dad. So it's a little like, hey, how's it going? I can't wait to beat you, but it should be exciting.
Moving up this year, they want to prove themselves, but they have to. They're a great 5A football team, but 6A is a little bit better than 5A. So we're going to see how they do this year.
Now that might be a little bit looking forward to the final game of the season, but man, I tell you what, in just a few days, Blaine is going to have a season opening test on their hands when they face off at Bengal Stadium against the 9th-ranked Lakeville North Panthers. This is a team that is always in the thick of it in Class 6A football. I'm sure that's a game that stands out. What else stands out to you on this Blaine schedule?
Yeah, Lakeville North, no doubt about it. We talked about all the hype around that Andover matchup. Another really good program coming up from 5A that the Bengals will travel to in week 2, the Rogers Royals. A lot of our North Metro audience going to be familiar. The Spring Lake Park fans, they were the power in Spring Lake Park section that often were blocking the Panthers. That'll be a fun matchup to, again, compare the 6A and 5A classes in week 2. And we'll hear more about it later on the show, but that Centennial game in week 7 is circled on the calendar as well, too, for the Bengals.
We take a trip across Lexington Avenue and Blaine's arch rival, the Centennial Cougars. They are next on our 2025 football season preview show. And Matt, a 4-5 season last year, losing to Rochester Mayo in the first round of the playoffs. And I think the expectation going into last year was they were certainly not going to be as good as that state championship winning team. They were going to take their lumps a little bit, some experienced players kind of getting into the lineup a little bit, but they were competitive, certainly throughout last season.
Yeah, the game I saw them in specifically, one of the most impressive games all year when they matched up with Maple Grove, the eventual state champions, and Centennial hung with them. Really for 3.5 quarters, just played sound Centennial football, ground and pound, kept the ball away from that dynamic offense of the Crimson. And that was kind of a wake-up call. The Maple Grove coaches cited that on their way to the state tournament as that being one of their defining wins of the season when they had to kind of pull away late from the Cougars and win a huge game in Circle Pines. So, you see what can happen on an even step back here for Centennial. They can compete with the best. And all those players, 5 returning starters in offense that got experience last year, they're encouraged that that's going to carry over. It helped them get out on the right foot this year with some guys getting their kind of varsity sea legs under them last year.
Like you said, a little bit of an experience last year, but once these games started to go by, that's when this quarterback and fullback combination really got into the swing of things. As Isaac Bolensky-Strauss and Caleb Melzer are returning, and when you made your trip out there to practice, I think a big talking point for this team was they feel really good with those two guys. That is that's the engine to the Centennial offense. We know they like to ground and pound, they like to be physical, they like to run that option play. Having these two guys back, you got to think is going to be a big spark for this Cougar offense.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have some guys playing both ways on the offensive line and the defensive line. It'll be a little bit of a smaller unit there. So I think they're going to rely on the athleticism of those guys in the backfield to make quick decisions, to kind of call it up at the line. So you've got an experienced quarterback and Caleb Melzer, a really fun, smaller guy that's really athletic, really strong. So those two guys leaning on their athleticism and decision making from a year at the varsity level is going to be how far the Cougars go, depending on that.
It's going to be really exciting to see how this combination does this season. Coach Diggins and others commenting on the experience coming back for these two.
Our guys that have came back, like Isaac and then Caleb, they're definitely taking the lead.
Isaac and Melzer have had a year together, and they're going to do a really good job for us. It's really nice to have. Kind of reminds me of when we had Dalen here with Mav. They had a year together. We don't really have to start over with square one. They're already into it. They know the basic stuff, so that's really helps us.
Last year it was kind of new, obviously. First year playing, it was a little nerve-wracking. I mean, we had a few mess-ups in summer and obviously during the season. But this year, with all that experience, I feel like it's going to be a lot more fluid already. In summer, me and Caleb have been seeing big improvements in the way that we run our offense, and a lot better than we were doing it last year, and it's looking good for us.
I mean, me and Isaac experienced. Last year we were kind of inexperienced. We hesitated a little bit. We didn't have necessarily the best connection with the ball, but now that we've practiced, we don't have to worry about each other as much. I don't have to read for him. He still reads for me, but we kind of just bring a calm attitude, and we can relax and influence other guys to, lead them forward in their growth as Cougar football players. Isaac, I mean, he's a great guy, great leader, reads the ball well, throws the ball great. I mean, he takes control of our offense. He leads our guys, and he makes sure we all do our right stuff. He's grown a lot from last year, and I'm really proud of him. And, it's great. Great runner.
Matt, we look at this Cougar schedule, a little bit of a familiar foe to start the season coming up on Thursday when they play the Rosemount Irish. But, man, I tell you what, you talk about this pen and you talk about circling things on the calendar. They got that last Friday night, the second to last week of the season circled, when they take on a Blaine team that knocked them off for the first time in 4 tries. The prior 3, the Cougars had won those games, and considering that Blaine got the win in that big rivalry, and then they had the success that they did in the postseason, you know that this is going to be a vengeful group of Cougars.
We heard some shots being taken both ways from both these teams, but I think we highlighted the Andover game, but we heard Blaine talking about this game. But no doubt about it, the Cougars, who had dominated this rivalry, I use heavy air quotes there, as much as there's been dominance in a very even series historically, 3 in a row, unprecedented. That was snapped last season with a monster Blaine win. So the Cougars have that, Sharpied, highlighted every single pen and pencil they got in their pouch. That's the big matchup of the year, and I think the Cougars, maybe the more motivated team, as they try to get another one in the win column against the Bengals.
You could say when Matt was out at practice, these guys, they had some comments, they had some things to say, maybe a little bit animated about this rivalry, but that's what this rivalry is all about.
It's always been a rivalry. Don't like those guys, and we're gonna win.
Blaine, I hate those kids, I'll be honest. I've known them all my life, and we've never got along. I mean, we all go to the same places. We all basically see each other on the weekends, so it's a bitter rivalry is what I'll say.
It's a big rivalry, always has been, and it's always just fun. We lost to them last year, so now we're going to come and get back on it.
Obviously lost to those guys last year, and we felt like it should have been a win for us, and this year we're coming for vengeance. So
it's going to be another battle. I mean, it is every year. We played them hard all these years up in in the lower grades, and senior class, junior class, they're both really solid on both sides, and we're just going to look for another close battle, and we're going to look to come on top this year for sure.
And Matt, when we look forward to this Centennial schedule, what really stands out to you as maybe some marquee matchups for the Cougars to kind of get over that 500 hump this year?
Yeah, I think the Rosemount game going on the road in week 1 is a big one that we're kind of looking ahead to on Thursday. Centennial have had the better of that matchup in recent history. Winners last year in week 8. They beat them in the state tournament as part of that title run a couple of years ago. So Rosemount are going to be motivated to get some wins in that matchup. Champlain Park is a game that we heard the Centennial players highlight, a game they felt like they should have won when they matched up with the Rebels in week 7 last year. They'll be on the road in that one in week 7. And then going back to week 2 a little bit, how about homecoming at home against Osseo? We got a brand new spruced up Cougar Stadium in Circle Pines. There's going to be a new scoreboard, some new amenities. So, always playing in front of the home crowd is always fun, but when you got some new bells and whistles to go along with it, that's always a big matchup.
We are going to finish off our football season preview show talking some Spring Lake Park Panthers football. This might be the most experienced team of our 3 teams. More on that in just a moment, but this is a team, Matt, went 3-5 in the regular season. Don't let that fool you. They won against Rogers, lost to Monticello in the section championship game. This is another team where maybe their record isn't maybe the best representation of how competitive and how good they were last season.
It was one of the deeper sections in Class 5A last year. Getting over the hump and beating Rogers was huge for the program. Rogers, obviously a very talented team. They're going up to 6A this year. We've seen them on our 2 season preview schedules already. And Monticello, who were led by Luke Emmerich, who's now at the University of Wisconsin. That was a couple of the losses in there, played him in the regular season. couldn't get over the hump and beat the Magic to go to state. So yes, the record deceiving, I think, for Spring Lake Park last year. And you talk about a team that are bringing back 9 returning starters on offense, 8 on the other side of the ball on defense, plus 7 of those guys multi-year starters of 3 years or more. You got a ton of former sophomores back in the class of 2026 who are now seniors that have been playing varsity ball for 3, sometimes 4 years, and that's going to play at the Class 5A level, and I think one of the reasons there's so much optimism for Spring Lake Park.
John Stewart, really happy about his experience that he has coming back, and the players around him be like, hey, this is a team that can use that experience to make a run this season.
I mean, we have a large senior group. I think we have 33 or so out, which is probably one of our biggest in recent years. You can tell that the experience and the familiarity allowed you to just maybe take another half step ahead than you normally would.
I think, we've had 2 years to get out there and get a feel for it and understand what it's like to be in a big game or in like a big moment, have people cheering on you, But I think where it really helps is now we have that experience there. Now we can really focus on the little things, the things that'll really get us to the top rather than a more mediocre team, I suppose.
Everybody is super together, and if anybody's ever confused, it's super easy to ask somebody questions, and everybody in this class is super athletic, so we can really put anybody wherever we need to, anywhere that coach needs them. They're willing to work their butts off and really to have that starting spot secured.
When you talk about that experience surrounding this Panther team, no guy might be more experienced than Lamari Brown. He stepped on to campus as a freshman, and he was making plays from day number 1. I believe that was my first year covering football here at North Metro TV, and right from the outset, just the electricity, what he can do, breaking out big runs. He can catch the ball to the backfield. He can burst it to the outside. He can run to the inside. This guy can do it all. And if Spring Lake Park is going to make that run potentially to stay, you got to imagine he's going to be a pretty big part of it.
He is, just an incredible athlete. He's 5'9", smaller guy, but really big. Just tough to knock down. He's a bowling ball out there, just knocking guys over, and with the quickness to bust off the huge plays. Yeah, he became the 8th Panther in school history to eclipse 2,000 yards last year. He might be the record holder if he's got a big senior year that he wants to this year. So really fun. He is the hub that makes this offense go. That being said, they've got some really good experienced players in the backfield to complement Lamari Brown as well.
Yeah, Lamari Brown obviously extremely talented on the field, but it's who he is as well off the field and in the locker room with his teammates that also makes him special.
He's been our guy for a couple years now. Since his freshman year, he's been on varsity. He's just a great player all around, great teammate. He's always encouraging others. He goes out there and he puts the work in. He's a great player, great teammate, and a great friend.
Since 6th grade, same team. We've been on the same team since 6th grade, so I just feel like that's the biggest, that's something I hold really dear to me. He's electric, of course. He's fast, he's twitchy. He'll always put my head up when I'm, dropping it down after making a bad play or something. And he's just always that person who will pick you up when you fall. And I just really admire that about him. And he's a playmaker, of course.
Lamari has a ton of experience playing as a freshman a little bit and sophomore and junior, and can certainly be a workhorse for us, and we're going to lean on it.
Of course, there is a lot of excitement for Brown in his final year in an SLP uniform, but this is a deep backfield, man, and that could maybe open some things up for Lamari Brown this season. EJ Monluo is a little bit more of a power back between the tackles, maybe the Thunder to Lamari Brown's Lightning. This is a deep backfield. It's going to be really tough, especially with what they have coming back as well on the offensive line to be able to contain this run game.
Yeah, a former defensive end who's just an incredible athlete. He missed his sophomore year mostly because of injuries, came back and was really excited just to get back on the field last year. And a really nice compliment to Lamari Brown. In terms of straight line speed, he might be the fastest guy on the Spring Lake Park team. Maybe can't quite cut it, change direction as much as a Brown. Still pretty new to the running back position, as we talked about, and he's a really nice compliment. You've got some playmakers all over the field. Kalen Truckenbrod was a big receiving target for the Panthers last year. He'll be back as a senior. Tyler Wilkinson played some QB. It sounds like he'll mostly be used as a defensive back this year, but those are all dynamic playmaker types, and Spring Lake Park have got those in spades with the varsity experience we talked about.
Let's take a peek at their schedule right now. And, we've kind of highlighted specific games for Blaine. We highlighted, of course, the rivalry game. For Centennial, you look all up and down this schedule, this whole thing, it's very different. It's very new and new challenges for the Panthers this season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement around the team. They've, of course, got the battle for the block matchup in week 2 against Irondale. That's always a massive game. That's the game of the year for Spring Lake Park. But a lot of unfamiliar opponents. As you look across this schedule, only 2 teams that Spring Lake Park played last year, week 3 at Park Center. That's the only other repeat opponent. So the Panthers will try to win those 2 games, Irondale and Park Center teams they beat last year. But then it's a lot of, we'll see what we get out of these new teams. I mean, people that have followed Spring Lake Park football for a long time are going to be familiar with the old Armstrong-Cooper matchups from the old North Suburban Conference. But some new teams, little extra prep for 8th-year head coach John Stewart and his staff to see how these teams like to play ball. But that's what's fun about the new organization of a lot of football in the state. You get teams, Moorhead came from across the state to play the Panthers last year. New opponents, new teams to kind of measure yourself against, and it's going to be fun to see how the Panthers stack up.
When you were out at practice, John Stewart was saying, there's a lot of excitement. Sometimes when you have some of those familiar opponents on the schedule, you kind of know the tendencies of the coaches. So certainly new challenges for John Stewart and this entire Spring Lake Park squad this season.
It's kind of fun to see some new teams come in, but at the same time, you like to have some historical reference for some games. And what's unique now is some coming back we have history with, like Robbinsdale, Armstrong, and Cooper. We played them for a number of years not too long ago. Buffalo and Cambridge, if you go way back to the old North Suburban days, like that was a staple of somebody on our schedule. So for us old guys, it's kind of fun there. The kids, they like to see some newness in there, and it does create a little bit of interesting work in the off season and trying to figure out what's this team going to be like, where your familiar opponents, you have a better idea of, oh, this is that coach's personality, so this is kind of what we're going to see and what they may do. And so it'll take a little bit of work in that side of things, but at the same time, it could be some fun matchups.
I mean, I would say, as Kate said, Two Rivers one just because the anticipation. It's our first game. But I'm also excited to play, teams like Armstrong, Cooper, Buffalo. They're, good competition. I think it'll be a good test. And they're all reasonably close to playoffs. So I think it'll be a good measure of where we're at that point in the season. And it'll really show us where we need to improve and the things we need to work on.
One game I'm excited about, I feel like, is Brainerd. Because, it's a team from, a little bit away. And we've never played a team like that other than Moorhead. So I feel like Brainerd is a kind of a good team that I'm ready to play, and I know they're pretty good too. So
that wraps up the previews of all 3 teams getting ready for those opening matchups on Thursday. And Matt, when we look at that Week 1 slate, we will be out at Blaine High School for that big time matchup against the Lakeville North Panthers. But what excites you about that matchup and maybe the other 2 matchups that are on the slate for our area teams in Week 1?
Yeah, I think it's a huge measuring stick, first off, for Blaine, our marquee game, seeing a top 10 ranked team in the preseason, Panther team that are always stout up front, on the offensive line and the defensive line. See who Blaine's playing at quarterback for one.
Yep.
They got those 3 options that we talked about, all very talented in their own right. You've got some new receiving weapons, but look for Noah Teeden. He's a guy that we haven't talked about too much in the preview show. Division I commit who's going to be headed to Western Illinois. So you got he's kind of a tight end wide receiver flex target.
Yep.
A deep field threat if they can get the ball out quickly against that pretty fearsome Panther defensive line. That'll be fun. Spring Lake Park taking on a new opponent in Two Rivers. I expect Spring Lake Park to hit the ground running with all the experience they've got coming back. And Centennial at Rosemount are a good program. They've been down the last couple of years. We'll see how quickly it can translate here for the Cougars as they look to get back to some state tournament form when they won the championship 2 years ago.
Going to start things off on a Thursday night, and then it's Friday nights until, the last week of the season when we wrap things up on a Wednesday night. Every single Monday, come on back here to Sports Den for not only football highlights, but also soccer and volleyball and the rest of fall sports. So that'll do it. Enjoy your football on Thursday night. Enjoy, of course, the rest of the Minnesota State Fair. He's Matt Dean. I'm Ted LaBrue. We'll see you in the next edition of Sports Den. Enjoy your football.